Sometimes the most profound ideas come from the most unexpected journeys. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of a man who looked at what everyone else called failure and he saw potential. This is the story of Dr. Ramaiah Kalimuthu, an educator who not only transformed his own life, but completely flipped the script on how we think about learning itself.
So, our story actually starts right here, inside the pages of this book, Singapore Tamils 200. It's a collection that celebrates 200 really influential people in the community. And as you flip through, one story just jumps out at you. Not just because of the amazing achievements, but because of the totally unconventional way he got there. And that really brings us to the core question of this whole explainer, doesn't it? How on earth does someone who starts out as a general school employee climb all the way to the top of the academic world, leading a department at a national university? It's a wild story, so let's unpack this incredible climb. To really get the scale of what he accomplished, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. We're talking about his journey from a small village in India to the bustling city-state of Singapore. Okay, so check this out. He was born in 1938 in Thanjavur, India. After finishing school, he did what many did and followed his brother to Singapore for a new life. But his first job, it wasn't in a fancy office or a lecture hall. He was a general school employee. But here's the thing. While he worked all day, his real ambition came alive at night. He spent his evenings hitting the books, going to classes, pushing his own education forward.
I mean, that is a tough start by any standard. Success was definitely not just handed to him. But he had this incredible internal engine, This intense self-motivation and a real burning desire to make something of himself through learning.
And that internal drive, it fueled a truly amazing transformation. Honestly, this next chapter of his life is just a masterclass in relentless self-improvement. This quote from a former student, Pon Madakam, just says it all. It perfectly captures how mind-blowing this was for people who knew him. Can you even imagine that? Seeing the guy who worked at your school when you were a kid, and then boom, years later, he's the head of a major university department? It was a transformation that seemed almost impossible. He literally built his career one step at a time, like climbing a ladder. First, a certificate in education right there in Singapore. Then, he got his Bachelor of Arts in Chennai. He came back for a master's from the National University of Singapore, and finally, he reached the summit, a PhD from the National Institute of Education. Each degree was like unlocking a new level in his own life. But he didn't do it completely on his own. There was this huge turning point when his department head, Professor Ho Wakam, saw something in him. He didn't just pat him on the back. He actively advised him and even helped him get a scholarship to go get his bachelor's degree in India. That was an absolutely crucial stepping stone. Now, this incredible journey of self-improvement wasn't just for himself. It led him straight to the heart of his biggest idea, an idea that would literally change the landscape of Tamil education in Singapore. For his PhD, he dove deep into this concept called error analysis. So what is that? Put simply, it's all about systematically studying the mistakes students make, but not to punish them. The goal is to figure out why they're making them. It's about finding the hidden pattern inside the problem. And this is where it gets really cool. The old way was all about that scary red ink, right? Seeing mistakes as the student's personal failure, which, let's be honest, often just crushed their confidence. Dr. Ramaiah's insight was totally revolutionary. He argued that a student's error is actually a clue for the teacher. It shines a spotlight on a potential gap in their own teaching method. He basically boiled this entire philosophy down into one powerful sentence. Errors teach the teacher new ways to teach. I mean, in just 7 words, he completely shifts the focus and the opportunity for growth from the student right back to the educator. It's brilliant. This completely reframed the whole classroom dynamic. When a student was struggling, it was no longer just a sign that they weren't smart enough. It was also direct feedback on the teaching they were getting. So mistakes weren't dead ends anymore. They were data. They were valuable feedback. And this amazing idea didn't just stay buried in his PhD thesis. No way. Dr. Ramaiah used it as a launchpad to lead and shape the entire field of Tamil education.
And so, the journey came full circle. The former school employee, the guy who studied in night classes, became the head of the Tamil Language and Culture Department at the National Institute of Education, the very same institution that gave him his doctorate. He led that department all the way until he retired in 2002.
And his leadership style was so inclusive and forward-thinking, he actively worked to break down those academic silos, He invited English-educated academics and scholars from all kinds of different fields to come and contribute to Tamil education. He was all about building bridges and making the whole intellectual community richer for it.
He also knew how important it was to look outside his own bubble. He took educational trips to universities in the US and the UK, and these trips exposed him to all sorts of new research and fresh ideas, which he couldn't wait to bring back and put to work in Singapore. So, after a life packed with so much incredible progress and so many contributions, what is the lasting legacy of Dr. Ramaiah Kalimuthu? What did he leave behind?
Well, you can really boil his whole life down to two powerful guiding principles. First, just pure determination. A deep, profound belief that you have to finish what you start, no matter what gets in your way. And second, a relentless curiosity, the idea that you should always be learning and digging deeper.
And his work didn't just stop at the university doors. He was deeply committed to giving back, sharing his expertise with community organizations, giving talks to parents, and directly encouraging students. He was determined to lift other people up, just like he had lifted himself. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Dr. Ramaiah's big insight was seeing a student's mistake not as a final judgment, but as a starting point, a chance to improve. And it really makes you wonder, right? What so-called failures in our own lives are we misreading? What if they aren't dead ends at all, but are actually just feedback in disguise, pointing us toward a much better way forward?